Hi everyone, Jedediah Thomas here. Today I wanted to talk about limiting beliefs, specifically how to identify them and how to overcome them. Be sure to like and subscribe for more content on mindset, so the subconscious mind, the conscious mind, traumas, limiting beliefs, motivation, and everything around that. So I had a question on one of my comments. This is from Million Daba 9758 of how to identify and eliminate limiting beliefs. Now, I will make another video about what beliefs are and what limiting beliefs are, but here I'll just kind of talk about how to work with them on your own. So beliefs are fairly tricky. They're a lot more complicated to pinpoint than traumas, right? Traumas are like one situation that happened and you got traumatized and it's super easy to fix. Only takes 5 minutes to fix a trauma. Um, Limiting beliefs only take 5 or 10 minutes as well if you know actually how to work with them. The issue is that your subconscious doesn't actually allow you to see down to the belief level. Right. So most of what you think are your beliefs are actually your thoughts, and it's not what you believe. Right. So in another video, I'll talk about kind of the map of the mind, but you have the thought level, which is what you're consciously aware of. And then below that, you have the emotional level, which everyone is probably familiar with. And then underneath that, you have the belief level, which is the basic, most fundamental level. That's where your regular beliefs are. That's where your limiting beliefs are. Now, it's not easy to see what your beliefs are until they've actually been challenged, until they've actually been changed, and your brain is actually trying to find a new belief. And then you can look back and you're like, oh, I used to believe that and I don't anymore. But while you actually believe it, it's like I said, it's either extremely difficult or nearly impossible to see your own beliefs. And it's even more difficult beyond that to identify which of your beliefs are actually limiting you. And there's a few reasons for that. So one, in terms of why you can't see your beliefs, I believe that that's an evolutionary defense, which is kind of like if you go to the watering hole and a dinosaur jumps out and scares you, you run away back to your cave. Immediately, you're going to develop a belief that there might be danger at the watering hole, and you're not consciously aware of that, but you start to avoid that watering hole and you go somewhere else. You could kind of trace back to where that happened, but eventually it's so ingrained in you, it becomes a program that you never even question ever again. And that's how beliefs take root. And so if we could go in and see our own code, then we could be like, oh well, it probably wasn't actually a dinosaur, it was probably just a big lizard. I'm going to go to the watering hole anyways, and then we get eaten, right? So that's not really effective in terms of survival from an evolutionary point of view. So basically, what it does is it shields us from seeing our own base code, right? You actually need someone else to look in and fix that for you, or at least tell you what needs to be fixed. So that's part of it. And then the other issue is that we don't really see our beliefs because we believe them, right? Like it's as real to us as gravity, as reality, like physical touch. It's reality, right? It's like a fish swimming in water doesn't actually see the water because it doesn't know anything different. That's exactly how our beliefs are, right? And it's not until our beliefs are challenged then we can look at it. It's like, oh yeah, I used to believe that, but I don't anymore. But you don't necessarily know what you believe now, right? So you just know that you no longer believe that other thing. So it's very difficult on your own to actually see a limiting belief. Now, you can actually kind of pinpoint what needs to be worked on by the effects that your beliefs are having in your life, right? If you have money problems, you probably have limiting beliefs around money. If you have relationship problems, you probably have limiting beliefs around relationships, right? So basically look at the areas of your life that's not how you want it to be, and there's probably an issue there. Now, so that's kind of the identification. So that's like as good as you can get without outside input, is just knowing that there is some kind of a problem in some area of your life and you need it fixed. Now, as far as actually eliminating it, fixing it goes, like I said, I can go in and crack into your head and, remove a limiting belief in, 5 or 10 minutes, just similar to trauma, is just a very different way of doing it, because I know how the mind works. But if you're not going to, work with me, if you're just going to try and figure it out on your own, or, some other way, here's kind of a list of criteria that you need to determine whether what you're seeking out is actually going to shift beliefs for you or not. So basically, you need 3 things to effectively shift your beliefs. Number 1 is you need an outside perspective, right? You need someone else looking in, and I kind of talked, a little bit about why that is. The second thing is that you need it to go down to your subconscious level, right? A lot of things operate on the thought level, and that's not effective for shifting your beliefs, right? It's got to go deeper. It's got to go below the emotions to that belief level, or it's not going to change your beliefs. And then the third thing is basically it has to affect a change. And affecting a change is different than adding a new belief, right? So I'll kind of like go through those three points and kind of explain them individually. All this will make sense in a couple minutes here. So the first one is you need an outside perspective. You can get that from a lot of methodologies. You can go to therapy to get an outside perspective. You can ask a friend, you can talk to a mentor, right? But basically, it's like you've got to have some kind of feedback from either the world or somebody else to get you to understand that your reality is not actually reality, right? There's a lot of people that believe you have to become rich before you become financially free, right? And that's their belief. And if you had a mentor, right, they could tell you, well, that's not actually true. You can become financially free in a month. It's very easy to become financially free. And then basically you work on getting rich from there without having to work a job, without having to pay, worry about paying bills, anything like that, right? But that's a belief shift. And unless someone tells you that, it may not ever occur to you that that's different than your reality, right? Because you believe that you have to have a lot of money to become financially free. So that's an example of an outside perspective coming in. So it could come from anywhere or anyone or anything, right? So there's a lot of ways to get an outside perspective. The second criteria is that it has to go down to your subconscious, right? So there's not very many modalities that do that. Hypnotherapy does. Let me see if there's anything else. There are a few things out there. Nothing's really coming to mind because it's like the more into the subconscious you go, the more woo-woo it kind of seems to like regular science, because science is all about the logical mind, and it's kind of scared of going down into the subconscious, and that's why it kind of sees hypnotherapy as a pseudoscience. But basically anything that goes down to your subconscious. If you repeat affirmations, eventually, right, maybe you'll get lucky and one will seep down into your subconscious, right? If you read a book, right, it might go down into your subconscious. But you have to be in the right state, right? You kind of typically have to be in a semi-hypnotic state of lower brain waves, right? Like right when you wake up in the morning is a great time to do it. Right when you go to bed is a great time to do it. But you're utilizing that kind of hypnotic trance state to install new programming, right? And so that's kind of the second layer of that. And then the third layer is that you actually have to change something, right? You can't actually just add on a new belief. And that's the failing of hypnotherapy. That's the failing of a lot of these affirmations and books and whatnot, is that yes, it is an outside perspective. Yes, in some cases by intention, in some cases by accident, it can go down to your subconscious. But then the third thing is it actually has to change something, right? So what hypnotherapy does is that it just adds new programming and it doesn't remove what's already there. So a lot of times after hypnotherapy, there's like this conflict on that belief level in your subconscious, and sometimes the hypnotherapy wins and sometimes your old belief wins, and it's fighting on a subconscious level, so you can't like help one way or the other. So it's basically you're kind of at the mercy of whether your subconscious accepts it or not. and then you're just trying to work with the hypnotherapist and they're kind of shooting blind because they don't actually know what's in there. They're trying to install a new programming, and kind of like, if both of them hold, right, it doesn't actually remove your old belief, but you adopt a new belief that's contrary, then it creates cognitive dissonance, and it can cause like stress that comes up out of nowhere and you don't know what's going on. It's because that two programs are running that contradict each other. In the case of like reading a book, or talking to a mentor, yeah, like if that could go down into your subconscious, it could actually change things. That's where having kind of a broader perspective from someone who's actually done what you're trying to do, they walk the walk, they can give you the right perspective. Like I was talking about with the mentor, of like, you don't actually have to be rich to be financially free. It can, happen very quickly if you know what you're doing. So yeah, that can go down into your subconscious, that can change what's there, right? But it has to change it instead of adding something new, right? That's the key. And that's what I figured out how to do with my methodology, is change your beliefs very quickly. I can remove the bad and add the good. I can change whatever needs to be changed extremely quickly. But in general, it's kind of, it's a little bit of luck, to be honest. You have to be in the right state of mind. You have to have the right perspective, right? Because just changing your beliefs doesn't matter if it's, you change your belief to the wrong belief, right? If you change your belief to, now you're a chicken, how does that help you with your finances, right? Not that anyone would do that, but you never know, right? It's like a belief shift is not necessarily inherently a good thing. It's just, a new belief. But it's got to change something, and you've got to accept the new information as reality. And that's sometimes difficult to do, because a lot of times what we tend to do is take everything that we hear with a grain of salt. And that, what that grain of salt is us putting our logical defenses up so that we don't actually take in what we're reading or what we're listening to a subconscious level, right? So we kind of chew on it and we're like, well, I don't know if I believe that or not. And then we either accept it or reject it. But the way to do it is to get rid of the grain of salt and just like take what they say as like gospel truth, basically, right? Which can be dangerous, because then you have people telling you stuff that you don't know what's there, right? So there are pros and cons to each way of going about it. But you do need those three things to actually shift a belief. You need an outside perspective, you need there to be change, and you need it to go down to your subconscious level. So that's kind of how to eliminate limiting beliefs. And there's a lot of guesswork involved in that. It's not an exact science. A lot of people don't know about the belief level of the mind. So there are some tools that can help you with that, like NLP is a fairly good modality that sort of goes deep down to that level. Tony Robbins does kind of similar stuff like that. But it's not as powerful as what I do. It can work, it can help you, but it doesn't affect an immediate permanent change like what I do. Like what they do gives you better insight, and it makes it easier for your subconscious to swallow, but ultimately it doesn't directly change a 0 into a 1, right? It doesn't change that underlying code. You kind of have to accept it or reject it for that to actually work. So what I do is I actually change the 0 to the 1 or the 1 to the 0, right? It's the binary code of beliefs. And like I said, I'll make other videos about that. But as far as actually like identifying it, just get an outside perspective is probably the best thing that you can do. And then for actually shifting it, changing it, removing it, adding new beliefs, just make sure that it is going down to the subconscious level. It is actually changing something instead of just adding it, and just make sure that you are learning from the right outside perspective, right? Someone who's actually been there, done that, whatever. Because if you just learn from anybody, then yeah, they can shift your beliefs, but it might actually turn into a limiting belief. But ultimately, the easiest way for you to see what needs to be changed is look at the areas of your life that are not where you want them to be. And then you can adopt new beliefs that actually enhance that area of your life. There's plenty of people who do like quote unquote mindset stuff. So if you want to listen to like affirmation videos or, you know, positive, I don't even know what they're talking, like, you know, those positive videos where they're, you know, like the background music and they're like, you know, saying all this stuff, that could potentially help. But that's all guesswork. Like I said, I have a science to it. But if you're like, if you don't want to work with me or you're not able to or whatever, then those are the paths that you can go down, keeping that goal in mind. So hopefully I answered your question thoroughly. Thank you for, you know, requesting specific content. If anyone else has content that they want, you know, feel free to drop it in the comments. You know, anything about the mind, I'll be happy to talk about it. So once again, like and subscribe if you haven't already. I'm Jedediah Thomas. Thanks for watching. Bye.